And this story is quite an interesting one. The governor of Benue State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, has called on the Nigerian media to hold public officers and the society at large accountable in order to achieve good governance. The governor stated this during the presentation of a word of excellence to him and some journalists who had made positive impact through their investigative reportage in commemoration of the National Union of Journalists Press Freedom and Good Governance Day held in Abuja. Also speaking at the event, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, reaffirmed the government's commitment to safeguarding press freedom, promoting diverse opinions, and protecting the rights of journalists. In your opinion, how can public officers and the society at large, be held accountable for good governance?
Yes, in my opinion, government officers can be held accountable when, for example, you know that a particular ministry have been allocated a particular fund for a project and you don't find that happening, okay? And you don't find that happening. As a citizen of Federal Republic of Nigeria, you have the right to report such government officer to the right authority, which is the EFCC, and you will back it up with claim. Once that is done, you see them bringing the person to book. But when we keep quiet, like, for example, now, the constituency projects, the funds allocated to National Assembly members to do projects in their various localities, we can't find any going on anywhere. So it is a time for Nigerians to ask questions, because by the time we ask questions, we will get answers. And two, the media, you guys have a role.
Before we go to the media now, still talking about the people and what they can do, identifying these people in office who are not doing their jobs and then reporting them to the rightful authorities like you have mentioned. Now, let's still stay on the people.
Okay.
We have had, a lot of Nigerians are afraid when it comes to political discussions and getting involved. I found out about that when we had the protest, the NSAS protest. And not diving straight into the NSAS protest, but just making reference to it. We saw a lot of parents coming out and saying, you are just children, you don't know what is going on. Do not come out and do not get involved. So that tells us that some Nigerians do not want to get involved in things like this. What protection do they have, since you're a lawyer now from a legal perspective, what protection do they have coming out to report these government officials?
Firstly, as a citizen, you are within your rights to criticize government policies. You are also within your rights to report anything you think is unlawful. But I know the fears of many parents, okay? Like during the NSAS, like you posited, I know a parent who reached out to me and said, call your friend though, the way he is carrying this whole thing, we don't want to lose him, or he's our only son.
Tell him not to get
You
involved.
understand? You see, society becomes very bad when those who can speak refuses to speak. Imagine if, people that are informed, that are well informed, refuses to tell the public the situation, then it means the politicians will just have their way, kick everybody the way they want, steal everything, and nobody will say a word. And believe me, forums like this are mantles to even educate the local communities on their rights. For example, the local government administration in Nigeria is nothing to write home about, and the federal government gives them enough money that should ordinarily they should ordinarily use it in developing the local people. But in some cases, the local people are not even aware that the funds belong to them. When you ask them, they will tell you, now government money, I beg, we are not interested.
Then you ask who is the government.
You ask who is the government. They forget that those we elected are just mere representatives.
Yes.
They are tenants in that various government houses, and their tenure will elapse. They will return home. There won't be police officers to guide them anymore. They won't follow convoys again.
Okay.
They will remain ordinary citizens like us. And at that point, Kama will return and be asking questions.
Now, how can the grassroots be educated more on holding public officers accountable? Because this is very important.
Yes, the grassroots can be educated through various human rights organizations. You know, we have so many of them, like the Transparency International, CDHRO, and all that. Educating the people, conscientizing the people, telling them of their rights within the law. And also, we have a government agency, which is the National Orientation Agency. But in my opinion, I believe that government is intentionally underfunding that agency, making that agency look very irrelevant, because I wonder who would want to fund an organization, you want to fund someone to speak against you. So, in my opinion, government need to wake up and understand that leadership and governance is about the people. If you can't give the people the proper leadership, then you shouldn't be there. Just resign and go home. But it's so shameful and alarming that our politicians, they find it difficult to resign. You see so many of them whom ordinarily we should call honorable. They are acting dishonorably. So it's really an alarming
you were going to mention what the media can do before I stated staying on the people. Now let's move on to your thoughts on that.
Yes, the media is a channel of communication. And the journalists should do investigative journalism before reaching out to the people, so that the people out there won't be misinformed. The people out there need the right information, because if you don't give out the right information, you are invariably misleading the people, and in turn, it is an offense.
Okay. Now, still on the media, do you think that journalists have been given appropriate attention to these issues? Do you think that journalists have been given quite a good space to speak out on certain issues, governmental issues, issues on governance, without being molested? Do you think the country has given journalists the space to air their view, especially with the current arrest of the FIJ journalists right now?
No, in this...
To encourage press freedom.
Yes, in this part of our world, press freedom is a challenge. You know, there is this suppression of press freedom in Nigeria. It is intentional, not just in Nigeria and other parts of the world. Government is intentionally suppressing the press, the media, in quote, because they know that through the media platforms, the gullible ones will be informed. So they do it intentionally, but also there is this legal margins that says nemo dat suprema legis. It simply means no one is above the law. So as a journalist, before doing a reporting, a journalist is expected and duty-bound under the law to do proper investigation. And sorry, in this part of the world, we see situations where, you know, there are no investigative reporting. So the journalism field should be encouraged to be fearless, because it is a profession that those who go in should be fearless. They should have the heart of a lion. Okay? And also the security agencies should stop molesting the media practitioners, because without the media practitioners, we will not be duly informed. And here in Nigeria today, we have rights. Press freedom. Okay? Press freedom. So on the journalist who was arrested unjustly, he is within his rights under section 35 sub 6 of the 1999 Constitution to either seek redress in court, because the law is very straight that anybody who is unlawfully arrested and detained is entitled to compensation and also a public apology. So if the journalist feels that his rights were tampered, he was unlawfully arrested in course of doing or going about his lawful duties, he is within his rights to approach the courts and file action against those who arrested and detained him unlawfully.
Talking about there not being investigative reportage, I would like to know why you said that. Because if you have stated that, it simply means that some Nigerians also feel the same way. From the story that we shared before the questions, it was stated that some journalists who have carried out impressive investigative reportage were commended for their work.
Yes. It is not only in Nigeria. Even in America, there have been cases where journalists are molested and brutalized. Okay? But as a journalist, before turning out any story to the public,
yes,
one, you must have verified the authenticity of the story you want to pull out to the public. So if you, for example, dish out an offensive reporting to the public, maybe your reporting is inciting, at that point it becomes an offense. The security agencies have the right to arrest and prosecute you. So we will trade with caution when we hear that journalists or a media practitioner have been arrested. We wouldn't just jump into conclusion to say, they are being intimidated. We should dig down deep to finding out what did the person report. Did he or she report within the ambits of the law, or he or she reported something that is insightful, that is offensive, that is defamatory? Because in some cases, some defamatory actions or statements can be criminal.
Okay, let's go back to the people before we move on. What would you advise the people? You know, I asked you a question earlier about the rights of, or how the law protects these, let's say, whistleblowers when you come out to make complaints about a particular government official. What the law says about protecting these people. We didn't really state that.
Yes. For whistleblowing, as a whistleblower, the law does not allow the government to make you public. Okay? If you whistleblow a politician, for example, it is right that your information should remain discreet to the public. And there are incentives as to those. There are compensationary measures attached to whistleblowing. Government added that policy as a way of encouraging the anti-corruption fight, and I think it's a good strategy to assist in fighting corruption in Nigeria.
Okay, all right. Now, to modify national identification number data